specializing in intuitive eating and movement. So I do have, as of COVID, and it has stayed that way, virtual one-on-one and small group coaching through Zoom and through emails and text once we're in the small group together. So my whole premise is I have come from a dieting background, and body image issues and intuitive eating helped me to heal my relationship with food and with my body. And I fell in love with it. So I wanted to help others to be able to do the same, to heal.
Yeah. Yeah. So similar to my journey is I'm an intuitive eating facilitator. Freedom with Food and Fitness is an online community where I coach and support women through intuitive eating and, stopping binge restrict cycles, stop having weight loss as an active goal, and incorporating fitness, which is something that I think, and you do that as well. I know you're big into hiking and yoga, and it really sets us apart from some of the other people in the intuitive eating space, which focus more so on the food aspect. But I think you and I both agree that fitness is also a very key component, fitness, movement, exercise, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But today we are talking about honoring your hunger. And I love talking with you, Bethany, because I never have any notes prepared. I just start talking. And it's so funny because I'm such like a type A, like I always prep for stuff, but it's just so easy to talk to you with this that I just kind of just show up.
Yeah, agree.
So with honoring your hunger, it's this idea that you're listening to your body. And that is very counterintuitive to any diet and anything a diet will tell you to do. My kind of intermediate step with recovery, because I was eating under 1,000 calories a day, was doing the Beachbody portion control containers. And that I call that my intermediate step to recovery, because it was still restrictive and you only had a certain amount of containers and you used to measure everything. But at least I was eating way more than I did before. But there was part of the portion control plan that I didn't follow because it drove me absolutely nuts. And that was the timed nutrition part. And if you're following any sort of timed nutrition or intermittent fasting or anything like that, you're using the clock to dictate when you should be eating, as opposed to listening to your body for when you're supposed to be eating. Because as humans, we get hungry at different times. We might be burning more calories one day, less another for energy. We might just have a smaller breakfast and then be hungrier for lunch early. So it's very much listening to your body and trusting yourself, which is a very hard thing to do after being in diet culture for so long. But this idea of trusting your body instead of trusting somebody who doesn't even know you, who created this program for you.
Yeah. I think another thing too, as I was doing more research on honoring hunger, I think it's important to know that there are also different types of hunger. And with intuitive eating, it's really important to honor all of them, because even if your diet is teaching you to eat when hungry, if it teaches you still that there are food groups or foods that should be restricted, it's still not intuitive. So there's probably more, but the 4 that I found were practical hunger, like when you're actually hungry, or when you have to, practical hunger when you're on a schedule, like let's say at work you have a scheduled lunch and it's 11:30, you have to eat at that time because that's life.
Yeah.
Your actual hunger, which is your body letting you know, I'm really hungry. Taste hunger, which is like you will really want something, you see a cookie and now all you want is that cookie. And emotional hunger, which diet culture really suppresses emotional hunger and it teaches us just to avoid it. But emotional hunger is real. We all have it. Even if you're well into your journey and you've learned how to deal with different emotions, emotional hunger still affects almost all of us. And if it doesn't affect you, that's awesome. I feel like you're definitely in the minority. So it's real, and it's something that we have to honor as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I have a 1-year-old and I have a full-time job that isn't this. This is like my side hustle passion project. And between working 9 hours a day and then going home, and being on as a teacher and then coming home and being on as a mom, sometimes I'm just so stressed out that I'm like, oh my God, I just want ice cream. And it's okay to have that as a coping mechanism every once in a while. We're not saying that can't be one of emotional coping mechanisms in an arsenal that you have. Like you also want to have things like maybe journaling, meditation, taking a walk, phoning a friend. But it's okay to have that as one of them. The only thing I would suggest is being very intentional with it. So being like, okay, what do I really want? Sitting down with it with no distractions and incorporating all your senses into eating that thing, not just kind of like mindlessly doing it. And you get that nice dopamine hit that you want, and then it'll be over, and you'll feel good about it because you didn't you did it with intention. And I think that's something to definitely keep in mind. And what you just said made me think of this idea that there are different types of hunger. There are different types of restriction, right? There is the physical restriction, but then there's also the mental restriction. If you're physically allowing all foods, but in your head you're still going, oh, well, that's really bad for me, or I really shouldn't have eaten that, or maybe I don't have to eat this even though I want it. That type of restriction, that mental restriction, will still lead to a physical binge. And I think that's the harder restriction to break, is that mental one.
Yeah, yeah. And the longer we put off something, I mean, we've all been there. We've all been on diets where we restrict things, and the longer you push it off, the more you think about it, and then the more you're going to overindulge in that item. You want a cookie, and you keep saying, "No, I can't, because it's going to make me gain weight," and you put it off. By the end of the week, before you know it, you've had a sleeve of Oreos. Where if you would have just honored it in the beginning, you might have been okay with just one or three, and then your body. And there's nothing wrong if you want to eat a sleeve of Oreos, I'm not saying that, but more than likely your body's not going to feel very happy with yourself, and you're not going to physically feel good after eating a sleeve of Oreos.
Right. And I think I said that the other time where like I could totally eat probably 3/4 of a pizza pie. Physically, I could fit it in my body. It'd be so delicious. I would feel so sick.
Yeah.
Like, because I definitely think I have some sort of dairy and wheat intolerance in large amounts, especially if I combine the two together. So if I ate 3/4 of a pizza pie, I'd be in a lot of trouble. But if I ate like one or two slices and like some other stuff that sounded good, I'd probably be fine.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's key too. A lot of the principles start with honor, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important because, I mean, we're not just talking, about something that doesn't matter. We're talking about our bodies, like the thing that keeps us living, things that we should be respecting and loving and appreciating. So it's important to honor that. And that means it. It's like you're a mother and you would do anything to take care of your little one. Well, we should treat our bodies the same way. We don't want to purposefully seek out ways to make it feel sluggish and to harm it and to not nurture it. We want to nourish, and that's what honoring means. It means showing something the respect it deserves.
That's such like a mind shift narrative strategy that's just so powerful. This idea of, if Archer was crying because he was hungry, am I gonna look at him and be like, no, 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 it's not time for you to eat. You're gonna wait another 2 hours, and the poor thing's screaming and crying. That's like, call Child Protective Services if I'm doing that. But we do it with ourselves because we feel like we need to fit a standard, or we need to do what diet culture tells us because we won't be worthy if we are a certain weight or if we eat too much food. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But I actually do like what you said about practical hunger. This idea that actually, for example, after this, I'm going to take Archer and we're going to go see my best friend. She's my maid of honor at my wedding, and she has 2 small children. And I said, do you want me to pick up lunch on the way? She's like, no, I don't need lunch. And that's a conversation for a different day, the fact that she said that. But I'm hungry. So I was like, all right, RK, are you cool if I like bring food and heat it up? Because I'm going to need to eat. There's no way we can be there all afternoon and I'm not going to eat. So you have to eat when it's practical. Like you said, if you have a 10 o'clock meeting and you're going to be in that meeting for 6 hours, like, you need to eat before that meeting. Hell, you need to have a snack and have that snack in that meeting, and don't worry about what your boss says, because you got to fuel up. I'm sorry. If I'm in a Zoom call like with my department and it's like I'm really hungry, I will shut off my video and eat. Like, I don't even care. Like, I just tell my supervisor, sorry, I was hungry. I'm not gonna sit there. Like, if you tell yourself, okay, I only eat lunch at noon, and then you get hungry at 10:30 for whatever reason. Are you like the hour and a half that you're going to wait to eat, the only thing you're going to think about is the food. And then you're going to get so hungry that you're going to binge because
Yeah.
now you're just ravenous and you're just going to want to shove everything in your mouth and not listen to your body.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that we've discussed this before too, but so many people want to be an intuitive eater because they know it's good for their health and for their body, but they're still so worried about gaining weight that it's still like stuck in their mind. So I think it's still important for people to understand the science. And I know we've talked about it before, but I want to bring it up again, that your body does not understand that you are intentionally restricting its caloric intake. Your body thinks my host is starving. So your body is going to store and hoard every little ounce of food you give it because it's trying to keep you alive.
Yeah.
So when people lose weight for 1 or 2 weeks and they hit a plateau and then they come to dietitians and they're like, well, why'd I hit a plateau? I'm eating 1,200 calories a day. I'm doing this and that. It's because you're not eating enough. And when you're hungry, you have to eat. And if you can't get past the weight loss thing, that's still the key to it. Even if you want to become an intuitive eater, and even if you can't get past the weight loss, eating is key to all of it. It's key to nourishment. It's key to health. It's key to everything. You can't restrict and expect your body to be healthy. It's going to go into shutdown mode because it's trying to keep you alive. It literally is in survival mode.
Right. Right. And it's an evolutionary thing. When we were hunters and gatherers, that signal for hunger, it's like, I need energy, I need sustenance, like you need to feed me now. And if it fears that it's going into a famine, your body's going to hold on to every single calorie you're going to put in your body, and you're actually going to end up gaining weight. And studies show that your natural weight set range will increase the more that you diet, and it will probably eventually go back to whatever it was in the beginning, so you don't have to feel like, oh, screw it, I've been dieting all these years, I might as well continue because my weight set range is going to go up if I stop. Like, don't worry about that. But it's this mentality we've been taught for probably decades, most of us, that we can't trust our own bodies. So to all of a sudden say, okay, trust your body. Trust is something that takes time. It takes repetition, just like when you trust anything or anyone else. So you have to be really, really patient in this process and lean into the fear. There is such a fear in this because I know the majority of people just don't want to gain weight, but like your body will end up where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And once you get there, chances are what your biggest fear was won't be a fear anymore. It's like when I gained a little bit of weight when I became an intuitive eater because I was forcing myself down where I shouldn't be. And once I got to that weight where my body was natural, I was like, oh, actually, that wasn't so scary. I was like, but I feel good. Like, I feel good, and I don't feel like I'm a different person. I think people think that if they gain weight, they're going to become this different, horrible person. I was the same person, and it was fine. So sometimes you have to, oh my God. I really should post it. It's this talk with Will Smith. And he talks about this time he and his friends jumped out of an airplane. They went skydiving. And he said that like the whole night before and the morning of, he was so scared. The moment he jumped out of the plane, the fear stopped. So it's like the fear is really all the before, but once you're in it, once you actually face that fear, it's almost like the fear goes away. It's this weird opposition.
Yeah. And I saw that in your post promoting this story, you had mentioned that some people were scared of that constant weight gain when you start your intuitive eating journey. Well, I'll put it out there and be honest, you probably will gain weight at first because if you've been restricting for so long, your body's like, hooray, finally, they're taking care of me, and your body gets excited.
Yeah.
But Alana said, face the fear, and it's kind of like you gotta ride the wave because your body will adapt and settle. Does it take time? Yeah. I remember I started my intuitive eating journey, and like Alana mentioned, when you're restricting on a diet, you can get your weight lower than your body wants to be. Is it possible? Yes. Does it stay that way? No. That's why you're on your 58th diet. But what's important to know is that your body will regulate where it wants to be and where it needs to be as long as you are following the principles of honoring your hunger and honoring your fullness. Do I physically, am I happier when my body is at 10 pounds lower? Did I like the way I looked better? Yes. My body doesn't want to be there. I'm an intuitive eater now, and I move intuitively, and my body is 10 pounds heavier than at my lowest. But you know what? I don't get dizzy when I'm working out. I don't ever get like super famished. I don't get those headaches from being hungry. My body is healthier. So
Yeah.
yes, maybe I prefer the way I looked 10 pounds lighter, but I also don't hate myself now. I've developed healthier body image issues and my body's happy. And honestly, that's the most important part is our bodies are no longer feeling those effects of starvation, which is what diets really are.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, we like the way we look at whatever weight and whatever disorder thing we were doing. But I mean, like eventually we get older, our metabolism slows, things start to sag anyway. And then we like not to be depressed, but we all die. So like what are we doing? Like is it really worth fighting our bodies? And we're gonna end up having to fight it harder and harder and harder as we get older and older and older. It just doesn't seem worth it to me.
Yeah, and you'll see posts when you follow intuitive positive people and let go of the diet world people on your social medias too. You'll see that a lot of us will post things like, when you look back on your life, are you going to remember the diets and the restrictions that you had? Are you going to remember the experiences? If
Yeah.
you're at the beach for a week, do you really want to not enjoy the time with family and friends, eating and making s'mores on the bonfire or whatever your family trip may be, because you're so scared that that marshmallow is going to make you gain weight?
Yeah.
Experiences need to trump fear of weight, because who also sets the regulations of what we should look like? If you are happy with where you are, who cares that Health Magazine says we need to be 120 pounds? If you're healthy and you're doing good, then embrace that and honor the amazing things that your body does for you each and every day, and ride the wave and enjoy it. It's a journey and it's meant to be fun.
Well, that was something that drove me to recover before I had Archers. I had this fear that I was going to be so preoccupied with dieting and weight loss in my body that I wasn't going to be present with him. And like that was my worst fear. Um, but even if you don't have kids, like you said, they're so you only get one shot at life. Like this is it. This is not a dress rehearsal. So every day that you are preoccupying yourself with body and weight and food is a day that you're partially at least missing out on, how full your life can actually be.
Yeah.
So just eat. Like if you're hungry, eat. And
Yes.
again, like we follow, and we'll eventually get to principle number 10 of gentle nutrition, but we do consider nutrition. You
Yeah.
know, I have something nice meal, something what people would call quote unquote healthy meal prepped, and it's something I really want, but it's also something I know is I'm gonna feel good after. But when you were talking about brownies and all that fun stuff, you actually reminded me that I have an entire like freezer bag of slutty brownies in my freezer that I forgot I had until now, and I'm like, that sounds good for tonight. But like I forget I have them because I don't
Yeah.
binge on them. I know I can have one whenever I want. It's a random Tuesday, and I'm totally gonna have one tonight because you reminded me I have them.
And that's why principle number two is so important. And Alana mentioned eventually we'll get to principle number 10 of, gentle nutrition. And some people who are coming out of the diet world into an intuitive world think that intuitive eaters, all we do is eat is cookies and buns and all this stuff. I'm sitting here in front of me. I know I have to teach a class after this, and I've got yogurt and grapes because I know that that's going to give me the energy and the fuel that I need to get through my workout.
Oh, I
So
haven't
it's
had grapes in a
part of,
while.
would you say?
I haven't had grapes in a while. Thank you for that reminder.
So I don't even know if nutrition is the right word, but nourishment. And that's so important to nourish your body. And that includes the principle we're on right now, which is honoring your hunger. You can't nourish yourself if you're not nourishing yourself.
Right. And I think there's something, and there is a principle that talks about being satiated, but I think honoring your hunger includes this idea of um, hunger from an emotional stand. You know what I mean? Like if I'm hungry, physically hungry, and I have a kale salad that I didn't really want, I don't think that's honoring your hunger. That's honoring your physical hunger because you're putting sustenance in your body, but you don't feel satiated. You don't feel good after that. By the way, I hate kale. Never got into it. Can't stand it. Sorry.
I
Sorry,
do like
wellness
those. I
world.
also like burgers and nachos. So you have to you have to be open. And again, I'm coming back to what Alana said, and I love it, is you got to face the fear. You got to be open to all foods. And that starts with not labeling them good or bad. And if you missed our last session on diet, rejecting diet mentality, that's the reason that's the first principle, is because until we get past saying this food is good and this food is bad, you're not really going to be honoring your hunger truly, because you're still going to be scared of eating certain foods.
Right.
And we can't be scared of eating certain foods, because then we're still restricting and you're still stuck in that diet cycle. And that's what we want to help people get through.
And the other thing is not even just honoring your hunger in terms of what you eat, but in terms of how much you eat. I saw a post this morning about how it's okay to eat more than a serving size. A serving size is so arbitrary, and I forget what it was actually meant to be, but it wasn't actually meant to be a suggestion for how much of the food we actually eat. I forget exactly what it was, but I constantly eat more than my husband. Constantly. And, you know, I think a lot of women, I guess because of gender stereotype roles, will be like, oh, I can't eat more than a man. Like, that makes me masculine, or that's going to make me fat, or whatever the case. And, like, that's not true. It's just
Yeah.
not true.
Yeah. And you mentioned food servings. I remember from my diet days measuring, I literally had the scale on my counter at all times. I'd put in the chicken breast, why do we need to be measuring chicken? I'd put in the potato. I would make sure it wasn't more than 10-ounce potato, because I can't have more than actual one serving of a potato. And after I would eat, I would still be so hungry. And I'd be like, well, you had your servings and you had your 300-calorie dinner, so go to bed hungry. And you are constantly in this cycle of thinking about food, eating, I'm still hungry. Thinking about food, eating, I'm still hungry. And it never ends, because your body's literally saying to you, please feed me, I'm so hungry. And you have to honor that by having more than one serving.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you know this or you saw my post, but I just finished the first draft of my book on intuitive eating, which is like strategies and my journey through it and all this stuff. And I actually just, because I'm trying to make sure I incorporate enough like research just to kind of back up the things that I say, even though we all know it's true. But I just wrote about the Minnesota starvation diet. And for those, you know, who are listening that don't know, it was a study done, you know, during World War II, 1944. I think it was 26 men or 32 men, something like that. They cut their calories by half. So all of them were eating roughly 1,600 calories, which is a number that I think most women are told to eat, somewhere around that range, right? And they went bonkers. They were obsessed with food. They all of a sudden were like saving recipes, and they didn't even cook, and they just felt lightheaded and lethargic. So there's all these physical and mental and emotional symptoms that they were getting because they were on a starvation diet. And that was at 1,600 calories, which is what most women are told to eat. You know, 1,200 to 2,000 is usually, right? And that was considered starvation for these men, and they went crazy. And we think we're supposed to be on that. And I told you I was eating under 1,000 calories a day for years. That's what he should be eating. My 1-year-old's in the other room. And like, I watch him eat food now, and the quantity that he's eating almost seems right for what I was eating. And I look back on that and I'm like, oh my God, what was I doing? Like, what was I doing to myself, and why? Like, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. A 2-year-old should be having, I think, 1,200 calories, they say. But again, we don't really want to start counting calories for babies, but that's what
But I think
they
that's important
say.
for women to realize that 1,200 is toddler amounts, and we're bigger. We need more energy.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy.
Yeah.
Who do we have in the room still? I see we have 2 people. All right, we have Hope. Do you have any questions? Anybody who's listening right now live? Questions. If not, you can always DM us. We are constantly on the DMs. I am, Bethany is. So definitely reach out to us. What is our next principle? What is it? Intuitive principle number 3?
Yeah, we can go through the principles. I think that'd be good.
Okay.
And I'll put a little plug in here too. I'm working on making a talking head for my YouTube channel too on the 4 different types of hunger. So if you want to dive a little deeper into those too. You can follow my YouTube channel, which you can get a link to in my bio to check that out.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Yes. So just to go over the ones, the Instagram live videos that we're going to be doing in the future. The next one is principle number 3, make peace with food. Then we will talk about challenging the food police, which is kind of like principle number 1 of the diet mentality, only the food police is your internal diet mentality. We'll talk more about satisfaction, hunger versus satisfaction. 6 is feeling your fullness, which is kind of the other side of honoring your hunger, feeling your fullness. We'll talk about coping with your emotions with kindness, so some more coping mechanisms emotionally. Respecting your body. Number 9 is all about movement, which is something I think the two of us can dive deeply into. And then last but not least is the honoring your health with gentle nutrition, which again is the reason why you're not going to eat pizza and cheese all day long.
Yeah.
There it is.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yes, I mean this is always so much fun. I always enjoy this, so we'll have to plan the next one really soon.
Yeah. And thank you for everybody who joined in.
Yes.